This is the story of a locked door and a revoked security clearance. In less than a minute, standing in the heavily guarded private corridor of a royal estate, Queen Consort, Camilla realized that 30 years of strategic manipulation had just evaporated into nothing. What she experienced behind closed doors was not a screaming match, nor was it a theatrical royal scandal cooked up for the tabloids. It was the devastating shock of administrative eradication. It was the exact moment. The illusion of absolute power shattered against the cold, hard wall of commercial and legal reality. In this video, we will unpack the secret financial and residential power grab Camilla attempted to execute behind the scenes. We will reveal how Prince William and Princess Anne silently uncovered the paper trail, and the ruthless institutional retaliation that followed. We will explore the chilling moment the Queen Consort discovered a terrifying truth. She holds a prestigious ceremonial title, but in the structural reality of the British monarchy, she actually owns absolutely nothing. To understand the magnitude of this downfall, we must first step back and rebuild the empire she thought she had cemented. For 3 decades, Camilla played the most patient and calculating game in modern royal history. She survived the intense global outrage following the tragic death of Princess Diana. With the help of top-tier public relations strategists, she meticulously rebranded herself from a national pariah to the indispensable confidant of a future monarch. When the crown was finally placed on her head at the coronation, it felt like the ultimate undeniable victory. She had crossed the finish line. The legacy of Diana felt officially buried, and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was expected to quietly fall in line behind the new matriarch. During this peak of confidence, Camilla began to operate under a staggering psychological blind spot. She held the absolute belief that because she controlled King Charles emotionally, she controlled the entire institution financially and logistically. She mistook her ceremonial title for institutional sovereignty. Feeling completely untouchable, she began to push the boundaries of her position. She attempted to elevate her own non-royal children and grandchildren into the inner logistical circle of the monarchy, seeking to secure them unprecedented access to the privileges, security, and properties of the crown. The catalyst for her ultimate humiliation was an incredibly subtle overreach. What looked like a routine administrative request sent through the palace management system was actually a calculated move to secure a permanent royal footprint for her own bloodline. Records and palace protocol shifts suggest a quiet effort was made to permanently allocate a suite of prestigious apartments within the royal estate exclusively for her family members. She sought to grant them unrestricted security clearances, bypassing the rigid standard protocols that govern the royal properties. It was a quiet attempt to blur the lines between the blood royals and her private family, integrating her descendants into the permanent logistical and financial framework of the palace before the inevitable future transition of the crown. She wanted commercial and residential security that would outlast her husband's reign, but she gravely miscalculated the new power structure of the British monarchy. The Prince of Wales is not merely an heir waiting in the wings for his turn. Upon the passing of Queen Elizabeth, William automatically inherited the Duchy of Cornwall. He became the landlord. The Duchy is a billion-dollar private real estate and financial empire that operates independently of the sovereign. William now commands ultimate authority over vast swaths of royal properties, agricultural lands, and commercial leases. He controls the purse strings that fund the public and private lives of the immediate royal family. When Camilla's administrative request to expand her family's footprint crossed the desks of the estate management, it did not take long for the paper trail to reach the desk of the Prince of Wales. He did not act alone. Princess Anne, the fiercely protective guardian of the crown's integrity, was fully aware of the protocol breach. There was no public outrage from William. There were no leaked stories to the press complaining about his stepmother's overreach. The Prince of Wales processes institutional threats through the iron discipline inherited from his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, and the enduring silent grief for his mother, Princess Diana. He recognized Camilla's maneuver for exactly what it was. It was an institutional erasure of the established royal order and a direct threat to the legacy he was sworn to protect for Princess Catherine and his future heirs. The retaliation from the Prince of Wales was completely silent, executed with forensic administrative precision. William weaponized the very system Camilla tried to exploit. The royal family does not need to shout to destroy an enemy. They do not need to stage public confrontations. They simply audit the access lists and change the locks. Under the indisputable legal framework of the Duchy of Cornwall and the Crown Estates, a sweeping security and property audit was quietly authorized. It was a masterclass in controlled, bloodless hostility. the security clearances for all non-working, non-blood family members were systematically reviewed and summarily revoked. The logistical support, private estate access, and financial subsidies for her private family members were immediately severed. Names were permanently erased from the master lists at the security gates. The climax of this silent warfare happened on a completely ordinary morning. Camilla, expecting her family members to arrive through the private royal gates of a country estate, as they had grown incredibly accustomed to doing, received a brief, painfully polite notification from the head of royal security. The vehicles carrying her family had been stopped at the perimeter. The security personnel, acting under new strict directives, informed the guests that their access codes were no longer valid. They were politely but firmly turned away and instructed to use the public entrances if they possessed standard visitor appointments. Shocked and deeply humiliated by this visual degradation, Camilla immediately demanded an explanation from the estate manager, expecting to use her title to override the security personnel. The response she received was a devastatingly polite refusal. The properties, the staff, and the access protocols were no longer under the purview of the King's office. They were under the exclusive, unchallengeable jurisdiction of the Duke of Cornwall. The trap had snapped completely shut. The realization crashed down on her with suffocating weight. She could not fire the security guards. She could not override the estate manager. She could not force the gates open. In that agonizing moment standing in the corridor, the crushing reality of her commercial desperation became clear. She is a queen consort who does not own the castle. She does not own the land. She does not sign the payroll. She is effectively a guest in an empire owned entirely by the stepson who has never forgotten the pain she caused his mother and who will never allow her to displace his wife. The immediate aftermath of the locked gate was not a loud explosion, but a suffocating vacuum. Stripped of her ability to command the estate staff and visually humiliated in front of the very family she had promised to elevate, Camilla retreated to the only shield she had left. She turned to King Charles. For 30 years, Charles had been her ultimate protector. He had waged public and private wars against his own mother, against the government, and against the British public to legitimize her place by his side. It was a deeply ingrained psychological reflex for Camilla to expect the king to immediately intervene, to summon the Prince of Wales and to overrule the security mandate with a single sovereign decree. But what happened next, within the private walls of the king's office, is the true psychological climax of the story. When Camilla presented the humiliation she had endured, demanding that the administrative blocks be lifted, King Charles did not reach for the phone. He did not summon his heir for a reprimand. Instead, he offered a devastating silence. The king looked at his wife and did absolutely nothing. This refusal to act was not born out of malice, but out of cold, undeniable institutional survival. Charles is no longer the rebellious Prince of Wales fighting for his mistress. He is the monarch, the chief executive of a fragile institution navigating a modern era. And as the monarch, he is acutely aware of the shifting tectonic plates of royal power. Charles understands a structural reality that Camilla had stubbornly chosen to ignore. The crown is a business, and while the king wears the most expensive hat, Prince William is the one who controls the operating capital. To understand why Charles abandoned Camilla to this humiliation, we have to unpack the commercial desperation of her position. The British monarchy operates on a complex web of sovereign grants, private wealth, and inherited estates. When William became the Duke of Cornwall, he inherited a $1.2 billion real estate portfolio. This is not ceremonial wealth, it is the lifeblood of the royal family's private existence. It generates tens of millions of dollars in liquid revenue every single year. William is now the landlord of Highgrove House, King Charles's beloved private residence. The king actually pays rent to his own son to live there. In this ruthless financial architecture, Camilla has zero independent leverage. She has no sovereign wealth of her own. Her security, her travel, her wardrobe, and her lifestyle are entirely subsidized by the ledgers now overseen by the Prince of Wales. If King Charles were to declare war on William over access codes for Camilla's private relatives, he would be launching a constitutional and financial crisis against the most popular member of the royal family, the man who quite literally owns the ground they walk on. Charles, ever the pragmatist when the throne is on the line, chose the preservation of the crown over the bruised ego of his wife. That silence from Charles was the ultimate betrayal. It was the exact moment the final illusion of Camilla's absolute power evaporated. She realized that she had spent decades manipulating her way to the top of the mountain, only to discover that the mountain was owned entirely by the son of the woman she had helped destroy. She is tied to a man who will not save her if it costs him his empire. and she is at the absolute mercy of a stepson who possesses an endless memory. With Camilla's secret power grab dismantled the prince, and Princess of Wales did not gloat. They simply accelerated the implementation of the new order. The retaliation moved from the administrative realm back into the highly visible theatre of royal protocol. Viewers with a sharp eye for institutional messaging noticed a profound shift at the very next major diplomatic reception hosted at Buckingham Palace. In previous years, Camilla had slowly and successfully integrated her private family members into the background of these grand events, blurring the lines of royalty. But on this night, the guest list had been forensically purged. The Queen Consort's family was completely absent. The structural erasure was absolute. Camilla was forced to walk into the stateroom completely isolated from her private support system, flanked only by the blood royals, who tolerate her strictly out of duty. And then Catherine entered the room. The contrast was devastating. The Princess of Wales did not need to scheme for access or manipulate estate managers to secure her family's relevance. She arrived carrying the immovable weight of the future. But there was a specific, deliberate detail in Catherine's presentation that served as a silent, lethal reminder of the true hierarchy. Pinned perfectly to her sash was the royal family order. But on her hand rested the iconic sapphire engagement ring, a piece of jewellery intrinsically tied to the enduring legacy of Princess Diana. That detail matters. Jewellery in the royal family is never just an accessory. It is a weaponized symbol of continuity. Every time light caught that sapphire, it was a forensic reminder to Camilla of the bloodline she could never overwrite. Catherine moved through the room with the effortless grace of someone who knows she does not need to fight for the keys to the castle because her husband already owns the locks. The Princess of Wales embodies an uncomplaining sacrifice and a quiet dignity that Camilla, in all her commercial desperation and grasping ambition, can never replicate. This entire sequence of events, from the revoked security clearances to the silent isolation at the state banquet, suggests a monumental turning point in the modern monarchy. William and Catherine are no longer waiting in the shadows for their turn to govern. They are actively managing the perimeter. They have weaponized the rigid protocols of the institution to protect the crown from internal exploitation. What looked like a routine administrative update was actually a total dismantling of Camilla's empire. The Queen Consort is now trapped in a gilded cage of her own making. She wears the crown, she rides in the carriages, and she stands on the balcony. But behind the heavy oak doors of the palace, she has been stripped down to a ceremonial placeholder. She is a woman who owns no property controls, no money, and holds no leverage over the next generation of power. She is surrounded by the silent, enduring grief of Prince William the Fierce, unwavering protection of Princess Anne, and the blinding, untouchable radiance of Princess Catherine. The game is over, and the silent revenge of the Prince of Wales is complete. He did not need to shout. He did not need to leak stories to the press. He simply audited the system, turned the key, and let the cold reality of royal hierarchy crush the last remnants of her illusion. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the hidden power dynamics of the royal family. If you found this analysis insightful, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like this video, share it with others who follow the true inner workings of the monarchy, and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth structural breakdowns. Click the video on your screen right now for our next compelling royal investigation.